Morgan, give me some insight into Clemson culture. So, Clemson gets back on top in the ACC after missing out on the one season at 10-3, but they get back to an ACC championship. They don't lose any games in the conference, but they lose all three of these big non-conference games. Okay, there's South Carolina, who for the last close to 10 years has been an afterthought, but now Clemson loses that game to South Carolina at home. Notre Dame's kind of an odd situation because they're not a rival. They're not in the ACC, but because of this ACC contract, they keep popping up and they show up at your back doorstep all the time, and you got to play them constantly. Where does Clemson stand? Florida State's becoming a threat. A lot of people are really high on Florida State coming into 2023. So there are a lot of threats out there to Clemson's position.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Florida State is a true threat. I mean, they're on the opposite end. They've struggled to compete in the top level of recruiting, but what they're doing really well is that transfer portal. So the complete opposite of what Clemson is doing. I think they have 4 of the top 15 guys from the transfer portal, according to some recruiting outlets out there. So Florida State is really going hard into replacing those guys or bringing in new guys from the transfer portal. And they've had success. I think Clemson would have done great with a guy like Johnny Wilson at wide receiver this past year. So I think that Florida State is doing what they need to do. And very much so, Clemson fans and Clemson staff should be on notice. As you mentioned with Notre Dame game, that was a complete just blowout, and just the offense did not seem to know what to do or what they wanted to do. Same thing with South Carolina. It seemed like they went away from doing what they're good at to try to do something different, and it didn't work. Now, they still had plenty of opportunities to win that game because of the turnovers and stuff. It really, really hurt them and basically ended the game with a final turnover on a punt return. And then the Tennessee game was another kind of never really had a chance. The score looks a lot closer than it really was. Tennessee was controlling the game the whole time, even though the box score doesn't look like that way. I always tell Clemson fans after that game, like, Tennessee has never been a team that cared about beating you in the box score. They're going to go out. I mean, they only had the ball for like 16 minutes against Vanderbilt and scored 56 points. So Tennessee doesn't care about the box score. They just want to score quickly and go sit back down on the bench, and they're really good at that. Clemson can't hang with teams like that. So I think that actually adds to Dabo Swinney's pressure that we talked about earlier. When I think about it, I'm thinking, well, maybe you should keep Streeter. But with losing 3 non-conference games that are huge, with also losing the last 3 SEC East games, talking about Georgia from last year, that's another thing that, Dabo, I think, started to see, hey, I've got to make some changes here. I can't just keep going this way because I'm basically now looking at maybe 3rd or 4th best in the SEC East. And you can't be that when you're the conference champion. I mean, we're looking at a conference champion at ACC who many think aren't even a top 10 team. I mean, you're talking about you're not even the 3rd or 4th best in the Pac-12, the Big Ten, or the SEC. That's not going to work for a champion of a conference. And so maybe that's why Dabo had to felt the more pressure and had to make that change in offensive coordinator. We'll see what happens. I mean, Clemson definitely has to get back up to where they also can score at will. Something we've talked about on the radio a ton is after every game, especially the difficult games, you hear, even with Tony Elliott, we just took what the defense gave us. We had to take what the defense gave us. You don't hear that from Georgia, from Alabama, from Tennessee. They don't take what the defense gives them. They go out there, they run their best plays to their best players and say, try to beat us. And Clemson needs to get back to that.